Dialogue with solution providers is absolutely essential in order to avoid wasting valuable time, to prevent squandering the company's important financial resources, and to reach as quickly as possible a solution that is exactly what was envisioned or had in mind.
We are here today with Daniele Russolillo, Chief Operating Officer of Planet Smart Cities. Good morning, Daniele.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and in this beautiful Planet office here in Turin, by the way.
Welcome.
Tell us a bit about Planet Smart Cities.
So, very simply, Planet Smart Cities has a very clear mission. We want to build large residential real estate developments, in other words, apartments, in countries where the housing deficit is very significant. Let me give you some numbers so you can get an idea of what a truly high demand looks like. In India today, there is a shortage of almost 80 million apartments. If we set aside rural India, which we do not focus on, we can say that today the urban housing deficit in India is about 20 million apartments. As you can imagine, there is a lot to be done. What Planet Smart City does is essentially build neighborhoods with certain specific features. First of all, we target a segment of the population that is slightly below the middle class, so people who generally cannot buy a home on the open market but need to find housing solutions at a price that allows them to afford a mortgage, perhaps one that lasts 20, 25, or even 30 years. There are many real estate developers in the world who do this job, so why is Planet Smart City needed? Because to do this, we have two layers of innovation that, frankly, no other real estate developer has. The first is a digital layer. We have a digital business unit that develops a proprietary platform which allows residents of our real estate developments to access digital services at the local level. Maybe later we can give some examples. All of this is aimed at improving the quality of life for the residents of our real estate development. We want the families who live in our developments, in our apartments, in our buildings to be happy families, where it is easy, or at least easier, to raise their children, thanks to services that are usually not available in that housing price range. The second layer of innovation is of a more social nature. We now have a validated model of social intervention with community managers and Planet developers who are dedicated to energizing the local community and addressing the needs of our residents. This means a lot of activity. On one hand, they teach families how to take advantage of the innovations that Planet brings to our neighborhoods. These can be digital solutions or what we call smart solutions, but on the other hand, they also take care of managing groups such as single mothers, children, and the elderly who find in our model of social development the opportunity to be supported in daily activities that make living in these neighborhoods more enjoyable. We develop many common spaces where these people can find organized activities, organized by our community developers. Even social innovation activities can make very positive use of our digital platform, which in some way partially disintermediates the role of the community manager, thereby simplifying this work and of course allowing us to scale the model much more effectively. These are the two main innovations, but of course we also pay special attention to master planning and design. After all, we're in Italy, so we also have to bring a bit of our style and our ability to create beautiful places where people want to live to the rest of the world.
Of course, truly beautiful projects. I also had the pleasure and honor of seeing them myself.
So,
my sincerest compliments to you. You mentioned two areas where there's a strong connection with Cloudia research as well, namely the digital aspect and the inclusive aspect. I think that inclusion, as you've also seen in recent developments, especially regarding AI, is truly a fundamental area, particularly in important projects like yours in the field of building development. The digital aspect is somewhat our core business. Let's say it's our soul, and it's also where our collaboration with Planet Smart Cities began, specifically with the implementation of Microsoft technologies, especially in the area of project operations management, which I imagine has certainly brought benefits to all your teams who are actually involved in the development of the project you mentioned earlier.
Yes, I have to say that today I consider it essential, since technology has such a rapid rate of innovation that's hard to keep up with while managing the day-to-day business, to have partners like Cloud Research. Internally, there is a need for motivation to make the best use of the technologies we have available today. And I have to say that what I saw at the recent events you organized, including the last one in Milan at the Microsoft headquarters, really confirmed what you were saying, that there is an alignment between your current development towards inclusive technologies and what Planet needs. I could give you 1,000 examples, but working in countries like India, for instance, where our clients are very young, on average between 25 and 35 years old, and are essentially all digital natives, the importance of well-implemented digital solutions can truly make a difference, especially in a sector like real estate, where traditionally there isn't a strong capability with new digital technologies. There's simply a bit more inertia to embrace that kind of innovation. So Plain Smart City aims to bridge this knowledge gap between the real estate world and the digital world, with the clear beneficiary being the end user.
Absolutely. And in your opinion, what has been the greatest benefit brought by the latest implementations we've carried out, especially in partnership?
Basically, it's the fact that we're able to make the best use of Microsoft technologies that are available today. I don't want to say off the shelf, because implementation and customization are always activities that require a lot of attention, but certainly this collaboration has helped us understand where and in which areas to use innovative technologies. As I said, they need to be customized, but with a partner like you, it's possible to bridge that gap between where I want to go and where I need to start from. This is fundamental, I repeat, because in the day-to-day routine, you sometimes don't have the time to think about how to innovate every single aspect of the business and its processes. And so, collaborations go exactly in this direction. I also want to mention that the collaboration between us, now further enriched by your work on AI, makes me think there are many things we can do together. I want to be very clear and specific. Today, everyone is talking about AI. Today, if I were asked where Plain Smart City could best use these technologies, okay? What comes to mind is the acronym RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. These are systems, and I say this for those following us who may not be familiar with the latest technologies, where very simply we combine a large language model with a very specific data set that we in some way query or investigate through the large language model. This is different from what most people usually know about large language models, because in that case I'm referring to a memory, or if you will, a data set on which that model was trained. At the corporate level, however, and for us this is even more important, having access to a model that investigates a specific data set of the company, which could simply be the file system with all the company data, but for us, and above all, for example, a rich informational corpus of data that we collect from the behavior of our residents allows us to perform a series of operations about which we can give you more details if you like.
Absolutely. As you rightly said, the topic of AI is becoming increasingly central. We, as Cloudera and Search, are also trying to provide a very practical direction, as you saw at the event. Certainly, the issue of having something tailored to each individual company is fundamental, because every company has its own needs and requirements. You also deal with a market that is very diverse, right? You work in India, you also work in Europe, and you work in Brazil. There are many differences, both cultural and numerical, as well as in terms of business from all these perspectives. So, just to give a practical example, we presented our various agents during the event on October 1st in Milan. Iris, for the document management part, seems like it could definitely be useful for the future of Plain Smart Cities from this perspective. What do you think?
Iris represents an innovation that, if implemented correctly and properly customized, can truly improve many processes within the company and save the time that is sometimes needed to find exactly the data you need. I have to say that for us, I like to take a very people-centric approach, and for us, using a RAG on the data we collect from our users becomes fundamental because, as we know, a large language model can sometimes hallucinate. In a RAG system, this probability of hallucination is greatly reduced, and since I deal with people who are not trained, the end users just want a simple service. Thank you. It is essential that the model hallucinates as little as possible. And so, extending Iris to a data set that is what we need to provide a service to my residents is fundamental. Let me give you an example. Today, we are working on some AI implementation strategies for our residents. One example is a chatbot through which our system can explain to residents without human intervention how to use and what the benefits are of the smart solutions that Planet organizes and implements in its projects to improve the quality of life for these people. This is already a very significant example, which in fact is a specific implementation of a system like Iris. The second example is that we are working on a system. This is very easy to understand because, thank you, it's something everyone who lives in a condominium has experienced. Sometimes something breaks, it could be an elevator or anything else. We need to report it. And often we're asked to fill out forms, talk to the property managers, to the facility managers. It's something that requires the resident to do something they don't do every day. What we want, and what we're currently working on, is a system where, with a simple voice message that is then interpreted by our system, these forms are automatically filled out, almost like having a middle manager who stands between the end user's need and even third-party software, but who greatly simplifies the process. So as I said, a well-customized Iris would go exactly in this direction. You showed it in activities that are very closely linked to business processes, and on this point, I have to say the main interest is scalability, because all companies need systems like this. We're looking a bit further ahead and are also thinking about an application that's more B2C.
Yeah, absolutely. We always try to make the technology available, but then it's a partnership effort, as we've seen in the past, especially with you. I'd like to return to the topic of inclusivity, which, as you may have seen during the event, is one of the many issues we're currently working on. But I'll mention two in particular because I think they're the most interesting, and in part also. I'm interested considering that you serve a very large and diverse community, as we mentioned earlier, also in different parts of the world. I4 Sign, as you may have seen, is a real-time translator for Italian Sign Language, LIS, and I4 Simplify, which is the simplification of text according to the European rules, the 70 European rules, for people with cognitive disabilities. Honestly, I also see an application for this within your communities, because if we want to talk about inclusive communities, they now have to be inclusive in every way, and technology is definitely a tool that can help a lot from that perspective. How do you see it?
I absolutely agree. Also because, frankly, any technology and any solution that moves in the direction of broadening the audience of a service, even to people who may have some form of different ability, is a sign of a civilized society. It's a sign of civilization. It's a sign of modernity. And today, all of this is possible. We deal with very different situations, with very different languages, with an audience that also has a very diverse background. And as a result, anything that moves in the direction of simplifying access, and I mean access in the broadest sense, to all the types of people we might have in front of us is absolutely fundamental for us. What I really appreciated about your work was that from the very beginning, it was done in close collaboration with the most important stakeholders. You mentioned realist, and I see a lot of value in this kind of approach. If a company like yours were to act according to a vertical business line to produce a product to put on the market without really caring much, it would be possible. Today, technology would allow you to do that. But without considering all the stakeholders in a system, we might end up with a product that is poorer because it was less shared with the most important stakeholders of that system. That's where I truly saw the ability to innovate. And I say this because it's a bit like the work we do ourselves, in the sense of taking care of, thank you, analyzing all the needs of the stakeholders in a system and addressing their requirements in an integrated way. It's not easy, it takes a lot of time, you need a method, but I think it's the only way to achieve something that is truly scalable.
I completely agree, you've hit the nail on the head, and as you rightly said, I see some similarities. in the sense that for E4 Science, we started from the community that needed that product and still needs it today. You do the same for your projects. You start from the communities in India, the communities in Brazil that have difficulty accessing certain building projects. And you move in that direction, knowing exactly what is needed from every point of view, technologically, as you mentioned earlier, in terms of inclusivity, and economically, which is certainly not secondary.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've also appreciated other developments you've made, such as the one related to simplifying text for people who have difficulty in analyzing particularly complex written text, because in reality that kind of technology can be scaled to many different situations. I have to say that I saw the possibility of being able to implement them in different phases and situations that could also be of interest to us. I have to admit that at this moment, all these applications need a dialogue between supply and demand. In this case, you could be the supply and we the demand, because the field of application is so vast that, and I speak as a company, there is a need to engage with companies like yours that have the privilege of dealing every day with where technology is heading. Frankly, one of the areas where I hope we can collaborate better is in trying to understand in which fields and areas to apply, for example, AI technology. Because as I said, the field of application is so vast that at a company level, there is a risk of losing focus on efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency is a topic we can discuss, but I would say it is almost expected. Effectiveness, meaning truly doing the right thing that is needed at that moment, requires dialogue. For example, today for us, trying to identify the 2, 3, or 4 areas where to apply AI is very important to understand. The other topic is engaging with solution providers like yourself. To try to understand how costly it is to organize the data that will then be fed into an AI system like RAG, as I mentioned earlier. So these two aspects, on which areas to apply AI and how to prepare the data so that the implementation is effective, seem to me to be 2 points where I hope there will be opportunities for discussion in order to eventually arrive at products and services that are actually implementable and useful.
Absolutely, that's why we see ourselves as partners and not simply as clients and suppliers. There is a dialogue, as there has been in past implementations. In the end, I would almost call our collaboration historic, because we've been working together since 2021. So it's been 4 years, years that I hope have been satisfying for both of us. We've certainly accomplished a lot, but now the technology was going through a really complex phase, because as you rightly said, end customers are also having some difficulty identifying the right areas where to apply this technology, which basically changes on a daily basis. And our job is to be the right partner and guide you from this point of view.
Yes, allow me a joke that I sometimes make with my colleagues from the Business Union Digital, because our proprietary platform has a front end, which is the Plymouth app. And we provide it free of charge to all our residents, allowing them to access a range of services. Sometimes, since, just imagine, we deal with thousands of people as residents, as our audience, and since everyone now has a cell phone in their pocket, I always joke that sometimes it feels like everyone has become a UX and UI developer. Because with everyone having a cell phone in their hand, they tell you, no, but the app should be done like this, like that, and like this. Of course, the end user's perspective is paramount. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be talking about UI and UX. But just imagine what happens today with topics like AI and large language models, where everyone can easily and directly access online chatbots to interact with. As a result, perhaps even more so, this creates a false sense of expertise, making people think they know exactly what needs to be done. No, maybe it's even worse than with cell phones, in the sense that people need to be guided. Today, there's a lot of noise around these topics, and it's normal at the beginning of a technological development curve for it to be this way, because there's a lot of information asymmetry. So, even more so, as I mentioned earlier, the dialogue with solution providers is fundamental. To avoid wasting time, to not squander the company's or the business's financial resources, and to reach as quickly as possible a solution that is exactly what was envisioned or had in mind.
Well, Daniele, we've reached the end of this very enjoyable conversation. Once again, thank you for hosting us in this beautiful Planet Smart City location in Turin. I hope that our collaboration continues as it began, with successful projects and a strong degree of innovation and inclusivity.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this discussion because, as I said, today it's essential to move forward quickly and stay focused on the goal, and you will always be welcome here.
Thank you.